Good evening. This is the Auburn Finance Committee. Today is September 24th, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. Let me read the remote participation script. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 786-535-3211 with an access code of 991-599-357, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join, also with an access code of 991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Members that are present here this evening, Michael Marshall.
Present.
Patrick Jones.
Here.
And Andrew Sharp.
Here.
I think that's all we have on the script. Meeting's called to order. That's the first. The second item is the Finance Committee reorganization. Did we have any discussion on that?
Sure, I'd just like to remind the town that we reorganized in December. We usually have a protocol, at least for as long as I can remember, of doing it just before budget season. So we're still in the year that we reorganized. So I think to do anything would not, that's something we've always done. And to reorganize twice in 1 year doesn't make any sense. So I would think that we would put it on our agenda in December, a year from when we did it last. It's usually something we do just before budget kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, anything else relative to, is there anything changes? I know we typically do it right as the sort of the budget kickoff starts. I think it was on a previous agenda and it sort of got bumped to this one without really much discussion, but
Through the chair, I would recommend that we postpone that item until we are able to research when it's typically done, and we'll get it on the agenda in the future.
no urgency then for tonight. Any other questions or comments? Okay, do we need
Motion to table this to a
Second.
later meeting?
a motion and a second to table the reorganization to a future meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Vote on some potential transfers. We only have one transfer. This one here is a request for an interdepartmental transfer for community television coming out of the contingency account. The amount requested $3,000 going to the salary account. Reason given, added responsibilities. I believe that says aiding Chris Hugo at Auburn Cable Television.
Through the chair, that is correct. I've been working closely with the person that's been working with IT and ACTV. We have added additional responsibilities to him on the ACTV side and also the golf course side. We're sort of spreading his span of control a little bit, and this is commensurate with those additional duties.
Questions?
Is that a part-time role or a full-time role at the time?
It's a full-time role.
Just for clarification, the increase is in whose salary?
John Horniak
Okay.
is the gentleman. He has actually taken on additional duties to being on call for nights and weekends for the golf course, and he's also taking on additional duties on the ACTV side. When I got here, we established that there was some gaps we needed to cover, so we wanted to take care of those, and this does that.
And John's currently, he's assigned, which is,
He is currently working with ACTV and IT, so he does both roles.
Is there a stipend for on-call in addition to this increase?
No, I am not giving him a stipend. He is a salary employee, so we were able to bump him up a little bit. We're going to watch his workload. He's a very talented individual, and he works a lot. In particular, the golf course and the weekends and nights, I need to keep a track of as well, but no, he does not get a stipend.
Or I should say this role doesn't get a stipend.
No.
so just to clarify, we'll see his salary under the IT department, and then we'll see a separate line under the ACTV when we see the budget.
Yes.
Any additional questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We had two small transfers that were done by the CFO that are under the $250. Any questions on either of those? We were provided copies of both those. Okay, seeing none. Okay, next is the larger item that we have for tonight, and thank you for the department heads that are here tonight to present. But this is to review vote recommendations on the October 28th, 2025 special fall town meeting warrant articles. Our choices are that we can either recommend for approval, not recommend for approval, we can defer to the petitioner, or we can take no position at this time. We'll start right,
I move that we take no position on Article 1. I
okay?
don't think we ever have.
No, we never have, so. Do we want to go through and do each one, do a motion, so is that a motion?
So we cover it, yeah.
Yeah, position, okay. We have a motion to take no position on Article 1 and a second, is that correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Mike, you gonna keep track for us on the
Yeah.
checklist? Great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything I can do to help, you know?
Article 2, this one's to see the town meeting will vote to amend Article 3 of the May 6, 2025 annual town meeting as follows. Do you want me to read these all into the record, or do you have them in front of you? And I think we have so Article 2 is the one we'd be discussing.
I don't think it adds anything other than time to the meeting, so
Exactly.
I'm good.
Do you want to discuss this one in particular?
So this is a supplemental fiscal year '26 budget amendment that's being proposed. It's a couple different line items in here. Excuse me, I'll just kind of go through quickly if you have any questions. The insurance and bonds, there was an increase in the rates for FY '26, so we need to increase the budget on that. The Norfolk Aggie assessment, there was 2 additional students that are attending for this school year, so that's the reason for the increase there. The treasurer collector salary, we have a retired treasurer collector. She retired in June, and she's helping us to close fiscal year '25, do some reconciliation, so that's what the increase is on there. The salary reserve, there's still a couple of unions that haven't settled, so we're asking for an additional $50,000 to put in there. The police chief salary and the police chief Quinn, excuse me, are coming from the retirement of the police chief that happened in July. The fire line items are from the settlement of the firefighter contract with an offset of an amount coming from the ambulance receipts. So the net amount of this article is $522,954, which is increasing the budget to the $82.8 million.
Questions on those?
I think my only question is, there's 2 here that in combination confuse me a little bit, which is the salary reserve increase, but then the fire also increasing. So that contract is settled?
Yes, so the fire contract was settled, and in the settlement, we resolved quite a few problems that even this board had mentioned in the past. We were able to solve some problems. The fire department employees actually gave the town back 3 weeks of admin time because our overtime was affected by the additional admin time that they had, that prior administrations had given them instead of raises. We took those 3 weeks back. We're going to see that savings, instead of coming to you at the end of the fiscal year for savings for overtime. I shouldn't say anything, but just in case. Actually, Chief, why don't you can probably articulate this much better, but we worked very hard with the fire union to bring them to where they needed to be. The savings, we need to pay it up front here because there's no tangible dollar amount with the 3 weeks vacation, but we'll see it on the end.
So I would love to hear from Chief Coleman, but my question is more, given that we have settled one of the contracts, I'm surprised, I guess, that salary reserve is also going up. And is that because, now I'm realizing that this is probably because the salary reserve for this contract was in last year's budget?
No, it exceeded what we had in the salary reserve because it wasn't tangible. The 3 weeks isn't a tangible dollar amount that we were able to get back. It will be later because they're not going to use vacation time. They're not going to use the overtime associated with the vacation time.
I guess sorry, I feel like I'm doing a very bad job saying this out loud. I guess I'm surprised that the salary reserve is not going down if we've settled a contract. Instead, it's going up. If that makes sense?
I think what I think is the confusion may lie is that normally when you settle a contract, money's removed in order to put it into the line item to cover the salary. So it would imply that the salary reserve would go down because you'd move the money to cover the contract. Does that help?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
More eloquently spoken than me, but yeah.
Well, this is, the transfers haven't been completed yet from the salary reserve to the different salary line items in the budget. That's going to be coming soon. But this increase is also because we have two other unions, the GEU and the highway just recently settled. So in order to make sure and ensure that we have enough in there, that we wanted to just put in an increase of 50,000 in there. Does that make sense? It has nothing to do with.
Yeah, I understand operationally what's happening. I guess my question and/or concern is one of the contracts we were reserving for in the salary reserve, I'm assuming was the fire contract.
Yes.
We are increasing the fire budget, not inconsiderably, and salary reserve is also going up. So if we reserved $480,000 for union negotiations, and we are we're increasing both budgets. So that indicates to me that we either drastically underfunded salary reserve in the initial budget because we're not only increasing it by 50,000, but we're also increasing one of the contracts that was a lot covered theoretically by that salary reserve by, almost $200,000.
I understand what you're saying now. I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
You're absolutely right. We're transferring that in as a buffer. We have had to bring Marianne Murphy in to help the treasurer's office. We are trying to hire an assistant. We're not sure if that person's going to come on. We've had to tap that line item more than we anticipated. We also
For non-union issues.
Yes.
Got it.
We
That's the question.
Yes.
I did a
Yes.
terrible job asking it. Thank
did
you.
one.
Sorry, it took me a while to understand what you were saying. And we have another situation like that in Town Hall as well, and it's not related to the unions.
Thank you. Chief, you want to discuss the,
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the committee. First, I want to start by thanking the firefighters union for sitting down at the table for what myself and town administration considers to be a very successful negotiation to settle this contract. And it addresses an issue that we have talked about for many years over several contracts in this committee. And the town manager mentioned it in previous years, and we're not talking about just the last decade. We can go back the last 2 decades. There was a trend 25 years ago where instead of paying the firefighters a competitive wage, they were given time off. And, you can't just keep giving people time off in lieu of wages and then think that that's not going to catch up to you at some point when now you have to cover the amount of time off that employees have. So when you look at the firefighters union, not only in some cases did they have at least double, maybe more than double of the time off than any other town employee, it was the same with their firefighter counterparts in other contracts. So the union has known that this was a priority of mine, not only in the last bargaining session, 3 years ago, but this most recent bargaining session, the firefighters union knew that this was a priority of ours. And they listened, and we were able to come to an agreement where essentially now they are in line with all other Town of Auburn employees, and they're in line with their firefighting counterparts in other collective bargaining agreements. But as the manager said, and Mr. Marshall, this goes to sort of your point about that additional $200,000, is in order to buy that time back, that comes at a cost, but it's at a value higher than what was set aside in the salary reserve, because in respects, it's not real money right now. So part of the negotiation strategy, and the manager and I had many conversations, this was our number one priority coming into negotiations. And we knew that this negotiations, we were looking at solving a long-term future problem. And we knew that we were going to have more money. We would have to spend more money than we had appropriated in salary reserve. So we made a commitment from the very beginning that we would take whatever was above and beyond that from ambulance receipts in order to do that. So again, I think, when you look at it from a dollar perspective, right, and I think this is important to understand, is when you look at what's the 100 some odd thousand that's coming from salary reserve on top of this 200, you can't just look at the total and then kind of derive your own percentage. This contract, from a percentage perspective, was right in line with every other collective bargaining agreement across the board. So it's not just as simple as you look at the dollars that are being infused in and kind of create your own percentage. And I'll just say that, across the board, no one gave up what the firefighters gave up in this contract. And again, there was a value to that, but it's something that I think is going to set us forward in the decades to come in a much better position, again, now that they're in line with all other employees. And this does swing into the overtime conversation, so I'll just update the board where we are here as of today. So in the first quarter of this fiscal year, we're at almost a 50% reduction in overtime as of today than what we were in the first quarter. And again, right, that comes with, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of, employees out, and we've been able to kind of manage it. But so I'm happy to see that the plan is working. But this contract, and again, I can't thank the firefighters enough. The concessions that they made in this bargaining session is going to be very beneficial to the community for years to come.
Questions for the chief? Chief, mine just minor, just largely. Can you just explain the items that are increased and how the negotiation? I understand that the time that was given back, and I appreciate that we've had those discussions. That time is money, especially when you're doing minimum manning for staffing. If people need to utilize that accrued and time that they've been given, and they have to take it off, which means you've got to backfill, which causes the overtime increases. But can you just explain a little bit the three items there?
Sure. Some of them are related to the contract, some are not. But the three articles that are related to us, the professional development going from 62 to 154, that's part of the collective bargaining agreement for EMT and paramedic recertification. Physical fitness stipends, that's new in this contract to have parity with the police. So that's why it's going from 0 to 48, because that has never existed in the contract before. And then the firefighter salary line, again, that's what I just explained. And the difference of that is coming from ambulance receipts.
So on the professional development, so we're we're compensating people for maintaining those EMT paramedic certifications? Is that what?
We always have. We're just doing it. We used to do it every other year. We're doing it annually now, and there was an adjustment based on hours.
And the fitness, I'm not familiar with what the police has for a fitness.
So on an annual basis, firefighters that are interested in participating can do a physical fitness exam, which is, basically push-ups, sit-ups, running, proving their physical agility. And providing they pass that physical test, it's a $1,000 stipend annually.
It's certainly, even though there's a cost, there's long-term cost for more fit and healthier employees.
Absolutely,
Reducing
absolutely.
injuries and
Yep.
medical.
Yep.
Overtime if they get hurt. Million things.
Any other questions on that one for the fire chief?
I don't know if we should stay with Article 2, but if he's got other warrant articles, would it be prudent at this time to ask him to respond to them so that we're not pulling them up left and right? Do you know if you have other articles?
I do. I have Articles 5 through 7, but I have nowhere to be, so I don't mind if you just stay on your schedule.
Why don't we stay in order? 'Cause,
That's fine, just as a.
If you were down in the teens or the 20s, chief, I'd have you. Any other questions on Article 2?
I just want to clarify, are the available funds to increase from ambulance receipts because we're closing out the fiscal year end and the 238,000 is, or is that to increase the revenue source because you think that they're going to increase this year? I'm trying to understand, if we're in a 26 budget, it says to increase available funds from ambulance receipts. Is that really not income? It's expense?
It's income that goes into a special revenue account.
But it says to increase available funds, so we're really talking about it as an expense. So you're increasing the amount of ambulance receipts needed to use to 1,888.
To use to offset the budget, correct? Yes.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
Motion to approve? Or motion to recommend approval, excuse me.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Article 3. I see we have the, Dr. Chamberlain here. Did you want to discuss any of the ones that were brought forth by the school committee?
Good evening. Nice to see you all. So we do have two articles for this town meeting. The first one being for the repurposing of $150,000 from the Swiss building. It was for air quality to be used towards Swiss parking lot repair and improvement. I don't know if any of you have been in the Swanson Road parking lot. We have a tremendous issue with some drainage. So there's a drainage system that was put in the parking lot to kind of hold rainwater so we didn't get a big runoff. There's a pipe within that has failed, and we now have very large sinkholes to the point that people can't park in that area. It's been cordoned off. It's a serious thing that, left unchecked, could cause further failure within the system. They feel like right now it's pretty contained, but it is something that does have to be repaired. It's not anything that can be left.
I actually drive by it all the time. Is that just like the tip of the iceberg, if you will? It's bigger than that hole appears?
Yeah, they
'Cause
don't-
It's just a small little section.
Yeah, well, it's probably about 10 parking spaces worth.
Sure. So is my question, Doctor, is that the 150,000 enough, do you think, to contain the problem?
We do. We have a quote right now for 132,000. There'll be a bit more on top of that for the fill that has to be brought in after it's repaired, but we do think that's going to be enough. And initially, that money had been, I know Mr. Fahey's been working on air quality improvements across the town. We had set that aside for some improvements, which now are going to all fall under his project for the town. So that's why that money is now available. So it's not going to hurt us air quality-wise either if we now repurpose it for the parking lot. And in preliminary investigations show that they do believe that this issue is contained to the very center of the parking lot and that it is not on either side of it. So we think that this is going to be the extent of the damage.
Any other questions on this one?
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. On Article 4?
Yes. So this is a longstanding leak that was impacting the portico in the front of Auburn High School. If you'd ever walked under there was some serious staining of the ceiling in that area. They have now rerouted that to correct the leakage issue. However, further repair needs to be done for the winter, so that it doesn't cause any damage when there's freezing and that sort of thing to any of the pillars that are associated there. So that's what that funding will do, is take the further repair to now make sure that the drainage happens appropriately and isn't impacted by freeze and thaw throughout the winter.
Questions on this one? Motion?
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 4. All in favor?
Aye.
So much for the support, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Article 5. Chief Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Article 5 is an article that I've put up before town meeting on 2 previous occasions. The previous articles that I put on was for $25,000 each time, and what I was doing was every 3 years, we were seeking funding for cancer and heart screenings for the members of the department. We've changed up the program and how we're doing it. We're going to be doing more of a cycle on an annual basis, so the dollar amount has reduced. So I'm looking for $16,200 to come from ambulance receipts, so we can enter into an agreement with UMass Hospital to do these. Just as a side note, for the 6 years that we've been doing this, we've found it to be an extremely beneficial program. We have had 4 members of the department that has had early detection of cancer, and 2 members with early detection of an early onset cardiac issue that was dealt with. So when you hear those kind of stories and you see what it does, it's a program that I'm glad we've been able to offer and that town meeting has supported in the past. So that's what this article is for.
Any questions for the chief?
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 5. All in favor? Chief, Article 6 is also yours?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Article 6 is asking town meeting to approve Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 42B and B and a half. And what this does is this corrects a longstanding retirement issue within Worcester County Retirement. And the easiest way to explain this is if we hired some summer help within the DPW that was mowing lawns or weed whacking, and they worked for us for a few summers, and then they got a full-time job with the DPW in the town of Holden, they would be able to credit the time that they had here in Auburn towards their retirement in the town of Holden. There was, I'll call it a miscommunication. It was probably more of a battle over the last 5 or 6 years relative to the fire service with Worcester County Retirement, because they weren't crediting the same time with call firefighters. And really what it boiled down to was a misunderstanding of the definition of what call firefighters were. The retirement board thought that call firefighters were basically like on a standby list, like civil service, to be hired. They didn't realize the depth of that call firefighters were actually working. So it was discovered that when municipalities adopt this section of the law, it would allow any call firefighter that worked for the town of Auburn who has moved on and become a full-time firefighter in another community, it would allow them to be able to credit their time that they served here towards their pension, just like any other municipal employee in any other scenario. So there is no cost to the town of Auburn for this, because the amount of money that would need to be paid to the retirement board in order to buy back that time is borne on the employee. And the fact that that employee never worked here full time, there's no pension liability on the town's behalf as well. So this is $0 in terms of contribution to Auburn. What this legislation does, passing of this law, it just allows the town of Auburn to say, yes, that employee did work here for this period of time, and allow that service to be credited.
Thank you. Any questions on this one?
I have 2. So if there's no financial impact, I would recommend that we defer to the petitioner. But I do want to, and that's where it leads me to my second statement. I'm not sure if we want to defer to the petitioner, because technically it doesn't have a immediate tangible impact to us, but it sort of does because we pay into the pension system as part of, and then they get credit. So even though it's not money today, does it really do we sort of really pay into it? Because eventually they collect their pension, which we do pay as a town.
No, so-
That makes sense?
So because these employees were never full-time employees, there is no assessment that is contributed by the town of Auburn towards their pension.
There's no OBRA, there's no part-time or,
No.
so there's not.
There's none. So this is for employees, let's say we had a call firefighter that worked for us for 5 years, and they left and became a full-time firefighter in the town of Charlton. This allows them to buy back whatever the retirement board would allow them to buy back as far as credible service within that 5-year period. And they would cut the check to buy that time back. When it came time for that employee to retire, the town of Charlton owns the 100% of that assessment. They were never a full-time employee for us.
So then I guess that would stand that I would almost say that we would defer to the petitioner because it's not something that has a financial impact. So I'll make a motion to defer to petitioner.
Second.
Any other questions on that before we have a motion to defer to the petitioner and a second? All in favor of that?
Aye.
And the next on Article 7 is both the police and fire chiefs?
Yes, so Article 7 is co-sponsored both by Chief Mills and myself, and we are seeking $50,000 from ambulance appropriations so police and fire can conduct a joint active threat response training. We have, all of the department members have had this training individually, and it's been a few years since we've worked it jointly. And when we kind of look at the makeup of our department with a lot of new people and some retirements, we feel it appropriate to be able to run that drill again.
Questions on this one? That, this training is just the EOPS training, the alert, or it's got a different?
It's alert, yeah, essentially, yeah.
The acronyms keep changing, but
It's air through the alert training at Texas.
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Article 8. This is I believe this is a zoning bylaw.
Good evening.
Without, I know this is one we're probably going
Read
to,
off the summary sheet.
what's that?
Just read the description
Summary?
of the
Yeah.
summary. We'll do our defer.
Want to amend zoning, Auburn zoning bylaws sections, yes, and add another section to comply with MBTA community law.
Motion to defer to petitioner.
And does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, we have a motion to
I got tons of questions, but not in my hat as a finance committee member, so.
I guess while Ms. Coyle is here, did you want to, are we right in interpreting that there really is no financial impact to the town relative to this?
That's correct. Thank you. The town planner over the past several years has brought some changes to the zoning bylaw, and some of these are necessitated by just the zoning bylaws are outdated, and new uses have to be updated. And quite honestly, even things that we have that happen for businesses that come to town and things that come up. And so we work through those and we say, you know what, it's a good idea to update the bylaw. So this zoning article does have some ties to the MBTA Communities Act. So several years ago, they put that act in place. And so over time, we have been updating and adding the requirements to meet the state act. So this there's changes in Article 8 that will eliminate the requirement for multifamily housing or apartments that require a special permit. So the state over time has required less of people having to get special permits. So that's going to clean up some of these things in Article 8 and make us more compliant with the MBTA Act.
Thank you. I believe we already have a motion to defer to petitioner.
Second.
And a second. All in favor for Article 8 to defer to the petitioner?
Aye.
Thank you. Article 9, also from town planner, vote to amend Auburn zoning bylaws, section 3.8, restrict uses, and 3.9, accessory uses. Did you, similar questions? If you just give us a brief, then
Sure.
ensure that there's no,
Yes, thank you.
ensure there's no financial impact.
So again, no financial impact. This is also an effort to update the zoning bylaw, things that are outdated. And this is, we're proposing to reduce any of the regulatory burden of certain uses that are in that bylaw. So for example, we actually had this come up recently where we had a farmer's market come to town. So it's kind of a good example that required in the bylaw that it needed a special permit. Well, we kind of worked through the process through DCG and having them come through what the requirement was in the zoning bylaw, and we realized that farmers market is a seasonal thing for a short amount of time, and to have them jump through all those hoops was kind of too much. So that's one example. We have no special permit for a farmers market, where we're in the now promoting electric charging stations, and that is obviously a change over the past really 5 years. We're a green community, so we don't want to make it a regulatory requirement to get a special permit. Like, we want to advocate for more charging stations. We actually have a charging station, a couple of them right here in the parking lot. So we want to make that easier. That's another example why we wouldn't want to have the special permit in there. So this just kind of helps that effort, and then also some changes to the industrial park zoning district. So it's really, again, to update with the times and recognize like what's happening in town and making appropriate changes.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Do you have a motion?
Motion to defer to petitioner?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to defer to the petitioner on Article 9. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one, Article 10, see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $50,000 from free cash for personnel expenses and other related costs associated with the Dr. Robert Goddard Centennial Celebration Weekend in March of 2026.
Yes, thank you so much. We are currently in the process of working with the Friends of the Robert Goddard Centennial, who are raising funds to help support the cost of this event. This request is just in case they don't raise enough funds for our staff. This is an estimate. It's a high estimate. It is considering what we would typically pay for on the 4th of July with that many people. So we've been working with Charles Slatkin from the city of Worcester, who lives or actually owns the Robert Goddard House in Worcester. And we've had multiple meetings as a board, and also the Friends of the Robert Goddard Memorial has had multiple meetings. And you'll start seeing their fundraising efforts around town soon. But what we're looking at right now is Saturday of the 14th of March, we'll have an event at the Robert Goddard Park, a rededication. Sunday, we won't be having anything because that's the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Worcester. We don't want to compete with that. But our launch date, which is actually the 16th, we were going to have a very large event at the golf course. We will have rockets that will be shot off. We'll have a replica. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're still putting together all the plans. We're going to have some people come in dressed much like the time back then and do a replication of what actually happened back then. And it's going to be fun for all. We just want to make sure that as we move forward, that we have the funds to ensure public safety. If we have a lot of people coming into town, which from what we hear, we will, just people who travel far and wide for things like this and for events like this, we want to make sure that parking isn't an issue and public safety isn't an issue. So I wanted to put this on the special town meeting, knowing that I won't have another opportunity between now and then.
Questions? Have a motion?
Move to recommend approval of Article 10.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Through the chair, before you read Articles 11 and 12, there's no dollar amounts, so I'd like to make a motion that we postpone these two until just before town meeting. I don't know if you have to read them if we postpone them.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there was an update, if there was a dollar amount for tonight, or should we?
I'm in the process right now of putting together the free cash balance sheet to send in for the certification. So we don't know the numbers as of right now. So that's why we just wanted to make sure that there's placeholders in here, and we will update them as soon as we have them.
We normally don't vote if we don't put that.
Exactly, I understand. So your motion then,
I'm
Patrick?
motioning that we just table Articles 11 and 12 to a Finance Committee meeting in the future, because we may be able to take up these articles as a separate agenda item before town meeting if we meet, but presently we don't have the values.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to table these to a future meeting. All in favor? 13. It's a, from the Select Board, real estate exemptions. I don't know if
If
this-
I may, Mr. Chairman, Article 13, 14, 15 are three separate articles that were actually submitted as one article at the annual town meeting. We had to change the language to make it so that the state understood exactly what we were asking. So we did have some language problems regarding the exemptions that was passed back at the annual town meeting. There is no difference in the actual abatement or cost of living adjustments. None of that has changed. It was the actual article number that was being referred to didn't actually exist. So we went back to council, had it rewritten, and he recommended three separate articles.
Questions on these?
My only question, and I'm sure no one will remember, is I believe that we deferred to the petitioner the last time around because the select board had indicated, even though there is some financial impact, there's no like direct financial impact, and that was how we approached it. But I don't know if anyone else remembers better than me.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I think if anything, I was arguing against that position, but for consistency's sake, I think if no one has an objection, I would move that we defer to the petitioner on Articles 13, 14, and 15.
And I do agree, I do feel badly that we're not sort of taking position, but on some of these, they're so complex and we haven't heard the testimony or the research or the documents, and the select board's not here to give us a rundown, so it's difficult for me anyhow to take a position on it without having somebody.
I think functionally, these all passed town meeting months ago. It's just,
Dory, I think,
Clerical
are they
issue.
still doing for the town meeting members this year, the pre-town meeting?
Yes. On the
Will there
October
be somebody
21st.
present at that to discuss what these are?
Yes, yes.
And I would agree, we would defer and leave it to the larger body.
So, Michael, you've made a motion.
I move that we defer to the petitioner on 13, 14, and 15.
We have a motion to
Second.
move Article 13, 14, and 15 and defer to the petitioner on those three articles. All in favor?
And I'm going to go ahead and move that we defer to the petitioner on Article 16 as well.
Just some
Yes,
discussion points on
absolutely.
this one, because I do this sort of has, as I read through it, my concern is sort of, and it's not specific to a financial, but it has an economic development potential impact. And my question, if someone's able to answer it, was the line that says traffic impact studies shall be required is determined by the appropriate board or town staff for large-scale projects where there is a potential for overlapping traffic concerns in the residential areas. It's just that vagueness as to when, there's a lot of criteria here for this traffic studies, and traffic studies do not come cheap, especially with this much detail and requirement, that I would not want this language to adversely impact businesses to want to come into the community. Certainly, I want the traffic to be addressed, but that's my concern, is a little bit on the economic development side, that we may scare some developers away based on the volume of requirements of this particular article.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I agree. This was also an item that was on the annual town meeting, and it was held. It was held, and it's being forwarded to planning, and I believe the zone,
Chair, it was discussed at the zoning bylaw review
Right.
committee meeting on Monday.
so there, it
I
still
believe they
needs, the
recommend-
language still needs to be amended to address the needs of, and the requirements of those two boards as well. It was a citizen's petition last year at the annual town meeting. We like the idea, and the boards like the idea. We're just trying to amend some of the language so that we are economic development friendly, and we're not putting any unnecessary costs associated with this, this new bylaw on the developer, or the town for that matter.
And that's, I was looking for a caveat that would say town projects would be somewhat exempt from the requirements of this one. As I can picture the fire station study that we'd have to, this would be adding hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. So the language here is still not finalized.
Any other questions relative to this one? Michael, we need a motion. to answer the
I'll
question.
I'll just say, I know from being present at the zoning bylaw review committee meeting on Monday, I believe that they recommended holding off and giving them an opportunity to like review it and tweak it. So, you know, taking that into account, I would move that we defer to the petitioner.
Okay, we have a motion to defer Article 16 to the petitioner. Do you have a second on that?
Second it. Interesting that, though, I will mention that a peer board, the select board, this is their request. I second it, and I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to recognize who the petitioner was.
Yes, you're accurate in that statement. What happened, it was held last year. The Board of Selectmen are in favor of some sort of a traffic study bylaw.
And
So
I'm
they
in favor of that.
reinvigorate-
That's why I'm
yes.
sort of wrestling with it. But to Michael's point and to what we've discussed, I don't think it's, even though we've put it there, I myself, without taking up more time at the meeting, read through this and am not comfortable with supporting it. And I'd rather defer to the petitioner than not recommend.
Okay, so just
So,
clarify,
yeah, defer
the
in-
second.
Second, to defer to the petitioner.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to defer Article 16 to the petitioner. All in favor? Number 17 is to vote to accept Nancy Drive from Vinyl Street to the end of Public Way as a public way per a plan dated June 10th, 2025. DPW Director's here. Quite a few coming up. Do you want to just discuss this one? I don't know, is there any impact that we should be?
So this would, this is for the street acceptance for Nancy Drive. It's one of those roads that the developer never finalized the process and asked for street acceptance. So we're just, and unfortunately, there's we kind of happened to find these neighborhoods here and there over the years. And it's unfortunate for the residents because they buy these houses believing that the street is accepted until such time that the road is in disrepair, asking for us to repair it. And that's when they find out that these roads are still private. So it was missing that step. Once this is accepted, we'll be able to increase our mileage that we can take credit for Chapter 90 calculations. So eventually, we're going to have to reconstruct the road, but we'll also have money coming in.
My only question, and it applies to this one, and the reason I bring it up is because I know that we have previously discussed Whitman Bailey Drive. Was this road built to town spec?
So this road was built to town spec, and it got to the point where it was recommended by planning board for approval, and that's where that process stopped.
Any other questions on this one?
My only question is for us, whether we, like, there's no, obviously, direct financial impact. We have to start maintaining it. What are your thoughts on, would we typically recommend or not recommend, or would we just defer?
Yeah, I think if we're comfortable and it will have a long-term financial impact, I mean, but it may have some financial benefits too. You said it adds into our Chapter 90 calculation, so I think we'd be okay to recommend approval on it.
I'm comfortable with that. I'll move to recommend approval of Article 17.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 17. All in favor? Thank you. Number 18. This is to vote to grant National Grid easements on Auburn Street for utility poles and transmission lines and authorize necessary conveyance documents. Any financial impact, or this is just a...
So this is an existing utility pole that needs to be replaced so that National Grid will will upgrade their system, and they don't have a current easement, so there's going to be a pole replaced in the same spot, but they'll have an easement moving forward.
Just to be clear, that's on town property?
I actually am curious why it further goes on to say that, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager to execute all and any documents necessary to the conveyance of easements to National Grid. Is that just so that somebody has some authority to sign off on paperwork? Wouldn't it just be the DDIS?
So they provided us with the actual deed that would be recorded, and it has the spaces for the Board of Selectmen to sign off, so they would be executing that easement for recording.
In my experience on town meeting and whatever, I believe the select board has consistently signed off on any conveyance of town property, even though this isn't like a full conveyance.
Right,
You're still
that's-
granting property rights to town property to a third party, so.
I think it just falls under, the DPW and the DDIS and the permitting, and everybody has, so much, no one team really orchestrates anything that happens on our streets. It's a group effort. So I was just curious why it didn't say and or the town manager, or why it was both. Is it just that so there's a second I?
I believe that's just standard language, just because the Board of Selectmen have that authority.
If I may, I do believe it is required, if there's any conveyance of land, that it be approved by town meeting and signed off by the Board of Selectmen. So I don't think any department head or myself have the authority to do that.
Because, and I would think it might fall into our charter. I ask because I'm aware in other municipalities, some of the department's heads, in their roles, they do govern property. And so that's why I was just curious. I was trying to understand Auburn's methodology. Gotcha. Okay. I just didn't want to tie up more people than we needed to.
I move that we defer to the petitioner on Article 18.
Second.
Motion and a second to defer to the petitioner on Article 18. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 19, I'll read this short version. Vote to borrow $4.7 million for sewer rehabilitation on Garter Drive and Sword Street, Force, Maine.
So these are the two locations that we've had issues with. We've already had sewer main breaks in those locations, and they're both problematic. Goddard Drive is cross-country, so it's in the woods, very difficult to get equipment in and out of there if there is an emergency, in addition to the idea of if you have a sewer main break in the middle of the woods, it might take some time for us to actually notice it. And the other area is on Sword Street, where we've had 3 that I am aware of, 3 sewer main breaks. And obviously, that's problematic to have construction, unanticipated construction on Route 12, in addition to the cost. So those 2 projects are mostly sewer lining with some excavation and replacement in areas that are too far gone.
Questions?
I know there's a couple of other articles coming up with borrowing in it, so I was just curious, is there a borrowing that we're expecting to do before December 31st, or are we going to wait and do it before fiscal year end in 2026? Are we going to borrow for this very soon, or are we going to borrow for it later in the fiscal year?
I'm not sure when
What is
that.
the timetable of the
Borrowing.
project?
So we are still in permitting for these, so we wouldn't be able to get started until next construction season, before the end of the year. It would have
So
to.
just as my reason for bringing it up is because we see it today, but just sort of put a placeholder out there that next spring a conversation may arouse around the borrowing is happening for these projects. Just to put it into perspective, usually you borrow in the spring or close to the fiscal year end because you want to make sure that all of your projects, that you're accounting for a one-time borrowing. Right, I would take it we would borrow one sum for the articles that are coming forward in this one. We wouldn't be doing separate borrowings.
I guess it would be the timetables of it, whether we would short-term borrow first,
Right, yeah.
and then we would go for bonding afterwards, but we definitely would consider anything that's out there that's been approved.
That's exactly right, it's having whether we're short-term. Thank you.
And can you just give me the summary version of how we borrow for something like this and timeframes? You know, how long do we bond out these type of big projects?
So for this one, and then I think there's others.
Article 20 is a borrowing, I think, too. Yeah.
22.
And 22.
Borrowing as well. So we would look at the timetable to see if we should short-term borrow, like if it's going to start in the spring and maybe carry over into the fall, then what we probably would want to do is to do a bond anticipation note. We could just do something short-term, borrow before the end of the fiscal year, so we don't have any deficits in any accounts that would go against the free cash, and then we would do the actual bonding. And on something like this, I'd have to check the schedule, whether it would be like probably a 20-year bonding on that.
Thank you. Andrew?
I believe earlier this year, we talked about a sewer analysis for the whole town. Is that still something we're looking to do? I assume to hopefully prevent some of these types of things going forward.
Yes, we are moving forward with our investigations. We actually have some sewer, actually, let me back up. Our sewer employees went through the next section of town and cameraed all those lines. That information has been forwarded over to our consultant for their evaluation. And subsequent to that, we also have a consultant coming in to do smoke testing for the next section of town.
Roughly how far are we through that process, do you know?
So the first portion was, I believe, the first 10%, what was believed to be the worst part. So we're on the second part. So the second 20.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion on this one?
Motion to recommend approval of Article 19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 19. All in favor? Article 20, vote to fund $2.5 million in drainage and irrigation improvements with $500,000 from Packagug Golf Course retained earnings and $2 million by borrowing.
So this is a two-part project, drainage and irrigation. Drainage has been a problem for, ever since we opened. It costs us profits just because sometimes we're not able to get carts out. Sometimes, we have to put caution tape around areas of the golf course or cordon it off so that people don't cause any additional damage. And sometimes we have to close down the golf course just because the areas aren't draining fast enough for people to walk on. So it's definitely affecting the money that we can take in, especially those golf carts. That's a large portion of our profits. And if we don't have those out, then we're definitely seeing it on the.
We had no rain this year.
This year, no. So that comes to the other portion of the article, the irrigation. So it's either too much water or too little water. So the irrigation.
Nice segue.
Thank you. The irrigation system, it's past its useful life. Our crew is going out there regularly to replace heads, replace components. So this will include a pump replacement, electrical upgrades, and a total sprinkler system replacement. Our staff of 2 people, they go out there. They're there 7 days a week, and because the sprinkler heads don't have a mechanism to allow for one sprinkler head to put out more water than another, we end up having crews go out there and hand water sections so that other sections aren't overwatered. So it's a strain on the staff time, as well as just making sure that we don't lose those greens.
Questions?
So this might be a question for Karen. How much funds do we have in the golf course retained earnings account? How much is in the retained earnings account for the golf course?
Right now, there isn't anything because it's actually technically expired, but we did return over 900,000 from last year that wasn't spent. So there's enough from that to cover the 500,000. So there will be additional funds adding to it as well.
I'll just say, as someone who is very supportive of the golf course generally, but does not golf, I am concerned about spending $2 million in taxpayer money. Is this a borrowing that would be paid back exclusively out of retained earnings?
Yes, it would come
Never mind.
correctly from the
Yeah, great.
enterprise fund.
Enterprise fund, that's important.
Can you just, for anybody that's watching this, explain that one more time? So the $2 million in borrowing would solely be paid back out of retained, how much time would we have to pay that back? Would we be putting $500,000 a year towards it? Would it be, can you just sort of walk us through that? Because it does, my initial reaction was, it would take us how many years to get back $2 million?
Karen, I was just going to say, you might, whether you do short-term or long-term borrowing, when you went to pay the actual bonds, you would actually take a portion of the proceeds and match it or take the other portion from somewhere else. So the full, I don't want to confuse the fact that we're going to be using retained earnings or money from proceeds for future to pay all the bonds back, but just a portion that's relative to the golf course.
Correct.
I didn't want that to get lost in translation.
So the 500,000 will be coming from the retained earnings, and then the 2 million will be borrowed, and then the principal and the interest over X number of years will be included as part of the golf course enterprise fund budget and paid just from those user fees.
Portion that's relative to the borrowing, right? Just wanted to clarify that.
And just, again, because I don't remember, the golf course is generally self-funding with the user fees. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's why it's in an enterprise fund, is the expenses are covered by the revenues that are generated at the golf course.
And the funds that it generates can only be used for the golf course also, so, yeah.
Correct.
Any additional questions on this one?
With that clarification, I will move to recommend approval of Article 20.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 20. All in favor? Thank you.
I play golf, and that would be a big undertaking for the taxpayers too, so.
I'm a mini golf guy, you know, it's a little different.
The next two are sort of connected and worthy of discussion, I think. So Article 21 and is to repurpose some monies towards a project on Water Street, and 22 is a borrowing relative to the Water Street. Can you maybe give us a Water Street update, and then maybe we can break them up at that point?
Sure. So, as some of you might have noticed, we only have one lane open on Water Street. We were approached by Mass DOT last fall that they noted some damage. I'm not sure that's the right word, but they noted some defects in the culverts. They're made up of 2 4-foot diameter corrugated metal pipe culverts. So they noted the issues with it. They weren't too concerned about it, but they wanted to make us aware that this is something that is going to accelerate their inspection schedule. So they're going to be going out there every 3 months, making sure that it's not disintegrating or it's not getting any worse, very quickly. So based on this information, we applied for 2 grants, thinking that because we have the inspection report from Mass DOT, that would make us a little bit more competitive in those grants. Unfortunately, we didn't receive those grants at the time. Subsequent to that, we got an email from Mass DOT saying that upon their most recent inspection, they're recommending that we close down 1 lane. I'm not sure if that's due to further deterioration of the culvert, or they also indicated that their directive is to be more conservative in closing these lanes down. So I think that some of their procedures are changing as well. But at this point, we have a road that's open 1 lane only. So you can drive from Central Street down to Route 12, but not the other way around. So the detour is going through Route 12, Sharon, and Meadow Street. We're going to try for additional funding, for additional grants, but I also want to make sure that we have funding available for the design and the construction. If we get the design back early enough, and we can start construction right away. But it was also my understanding that because the detour was relatively short and easy to follow, that might have been one of the reasons why we didn't receive those grants. Now,
Could you say that piece one more time?
because the detour was easy and was not too cumbersome, it wasn't as much of a priority as some of the other projects that would have been awarded. So I think they have certain criteria that they follow, and that was one of the things that might have contributed to that. I don't know if because we had to shut down that 1 lane, now it's more critical and they might be, it might be looked more favorable. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we have the funding available when we're ready for construction.
Before I make anybody have any?
I think you should jump right in.
Yeah. No,
So I will. Have we done any talk about traffic studies. Have we done anything? I know that street well. I looked up today on the maps online. There's only 5 homes on it. They're all on the Central Street side of the culvert. I go by there all the time. Very low traveled road. The one lane, I think the one lane people are confused now that people are automatically just either doing Meadow to Sharon or they're doing Church Street as their alternate route around Water Street. Is this even a project worthwhile of $1.6 million? Or should we just put Jersey barriers on either side of that culvert and call it a dead-end road for the residents of that central to, would there be any impact to just?
I think that would be a conversation with public safety and obviously the affected residents. I'm putting this in front of the board just because it's a road that's limited, but that is a good point. I know that, there are only several houses there, but, I would defer to the town meeting and the boards on that one.
Okay.
I mean, through the chair, I'm sorry. One of the suggestions that we did receive from a consulting engineer is to create a cul-de-sac, but I don't know how the town would receive that. It would still cost money to construct a cul-de-sac at the end of that road, but
Just a dead end. Well, not all dead ends they're just dead ends. I certainly would want the public safety, to consult. There are, like even MassDOT or the grants said, there are very easy ways to get around that area. People historically have driven way too fast on that road coming from across. So I honestly don't think the residents would even, I think they may welcome having a nice, quiet roadway. I know as a teenager myself, there was always you could go over that culvert pretty good if you got some speed. And
We now know the cause of the damage.
yeah. I just think it needs something before, we even make, we can make whichever recommendations we want as a committee, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at even before it goes to, the town looks to investing that much money in a very short piece of roadway that is not utilized all that much. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I'll say is I feel like we've had a lot of discussions around this being a tough financial year. It sounds like we applied for and didn't get grants. I don't know what the urgency is from my perspective. Like if one lane is still open, it's not the road is not completely closed. There's a seemingly very easy detour. I'm wondering if this is a project that we table, but that's not my job. So I don't, yeah.
so through the chair, the discussions that I've had with Mass DOT are that, at this point, they're recommending one lane to be closed, but there is still a possibility that the entire road might have to be closed in the future.
Anybody else have any?
Anybody live on Water Street?
I don't, but I agree with you, I don't see it being an issue that needs to be tackled today or now, but.
I think there are people that would rather, that much money go into, more miles of paving and other infrastructure improvements. Not to take away from any of those 5 residents, taxpayers that live on Water Street, but I'd be surprised if they would not be in favor of either maintaining the one way or possibly just a dead end street for themselves. But okay. Anybody have any motions on this one? We have to do Article 21. So Article 21 would be the first one, which would be to repurpose $150,000 for an engineering design of the culvert replacement, which,
So my question for this is, if town meeting were to approve this, how long do you have in order to make in order to put it out for those engineering drawings? Like, if we repurpose these CIP funds, is it until the end of this fiscal year that you have to do it for that purpose, or is it they're repurposed and you can do it at whatever time you feel like it makes sense?
Once you repurpose it, then it's there for that reason, and then we're going to hold it there. I mean, obviously, we want to proceed at some point, or repurpose it again.
It can be
but there is
repurposed
no
again at some point, yeah.
Timeline that you have to have it done by.
No, but I think to repurpose it and get it on the warrant article now would mean that we could get it done in the spring. You know you've approved the funds, you know you can act early when the weather has started to improve. That would be, I think, would be the benefit of doing it now.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is, I am comfortable recommending approval of the repurposing of the funds. I'm not sure I'm comfortable recommending a $1.5 million replacement project. Like, the $150,000 is money we've already allocated for capital improvements in town. If we decide not to do this project, ultimately, that money can be repurposed again. So I have no issue with that. So I just wanted to make sure that by doing this now, we're not like handcuffing ourselves to any particular project or timeline. So I guess I won't make a motion yet, but I will just say it's my intention to recommend approval of Article 21 and either take no position or defer to the petitioner on 22. I don't feel comfortable recommending approval of spending $1.5 million personally, but unless anyone has any objections to that course of action, that's how I would proceed.
My only thought is, I mean, this is a fiscal decision, and I think on this one, if it's the fiscal reason we have some apprehension, our position might be better to say that we don't recommend, based on the fiscal, not on the merits of the engineering or the construction or the travelway, but it's just on the information presented, and the spending is where our angst seems to lie. But again, that's just my thoughts.
I'm also assuming we won't know what it'll cost until we've got the design. Is that right, Joanna?
Sorry?
We won't know what the project costs until we have the engineering design done, right?
Correct.
So I assume like 1.5 million, I'm sure, is an estimate, and I based on my previous experience with you, I'm guessing it's a relatively high estimate to be conservative. So
Yes.
based on all of that, like it doesn't strike me as irresponsible to spend the money to figure out what it would cost to replace the culvert. It does strike me as slightly irresponsible to recommend authorizing the borrowing at this point, but.
And I guess that's my question, is this, the Article 21 specifically talks about the engineering services for the design of the water culvert. Is there a possibility that, if it, I don't know if it would need to be rephrased, could talk about those other concerns, the traffic studies, the impacts of whether that project is worthwhile going forward at all?
I mean, the article could be reworded at town meeting floor to encompass all of those ideas.
I don't know if you'd be able to use capital funds though for like, that's the only question I'd have about like a traffic.
That was where
study or something
my
like that.
question was with capital. I had a question about using capital funds for it as well.
Capital for the design or capital for?
Capital for
Well, we're
design, definitely,
repurposing.
but, because it's engineering drawings, but if
Can't
the
be for
idea
studies.
is,
Studies would
yeah,
not be part of the design.
I think
Traffic
the
study?
kind of study you're talking about, which is like, is the cost benefit of this?
Well, I think that some of that would come through a traffic study, which I don't know how you do a study now that the road is half of what it was before when it was a two-lane road. You can only study half of the traffic, but. Okay.
Yeah.
Town manager, do you have anything you want to, any guidance for us?
I think you raise very valuable points, and I think we need to look at alternatives in addition to this, especially the design portion. We do have DOT at our door. There's a very good chance the whole road will be eventually closed down. But I think it's something that we should tie the neighbors into and have that discussion, see what their thoughts are, and see what legally we would have to do to make that a dead end, and see if that's possible, and if I'm not sure if it is, but I can definitely look into that for you.
And if this were not to pass, I mean, it could be brought back before in the regular town meeting for, again, there's not,
That's correct. It can be brought back at the annual town meeting.
But it can also be not recommended by us, recommended by the selectmen and pass at town meeting. So we're just really, within our group, saying whether we want to recommend or not recommend or defer. So,
Now, based on what Kevin said, I agree. I think deferring is kind of a cop-out. We're the finance board. This has a pretty direct financial impact. And deferring is just saying, we think we should do whatever Joanna wants, which she wants the money. That's why she asked for it. So,
right.
Again, I'm comfortable recommending approval of 21 and not 22 because it gives you the ability to do some design work pre-annual town meeting in March or May. And like, you don't have to spend the money if you don't want to, but you can if ultimately it seems like that's the way the town wants to move forward. So I'll make that motion and you guys can vote however you want. I move to recommend approval of Article 21.
okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of Article 21.
I'll second.
And we have a second, okay? Motion and a second on Article 21, all in favor? To recommend approval, okay?
And I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain on that one? Okay. So we,
Jury's sort of out on this now. I sort of have an idea when I was reading them, but now I'm feeling like I'm going to abstain.
okay.
And I'm going to abstain, yeah.
So it'll pass, it'll be the recommend for approval. We had 4 recommends and 1 abstention. For Article 22, vote to borrow 1.5 million for Water Street Culvert Replacement Project.
I will move not to recommend approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to vote not to recommend approval of Article 22. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on, thank you for that one. 23, vote to appropriate $40,000 from free cash for a monitoring, well replacement, environmental testing, and solid waste advisory services at the former landfill.
So, as I think everybody knows, we have a landfill that is closed on Rochdale Street. We have had a consultant do groundwater and gas monitoring, groundwater testing and gas monitoring at the landfill. We met with DEP recently, and they indicated that they would be requiring a third-party inspection report. So we're looking to increase the funds available for our consultant in preparation for that, as well as the last report that we received from our consultant. They indicated that there was a monitoring well that needed replacement.
Any questions on this one?
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 23. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 24, vote to authorize establishment, vote to amend Article 4, which is from May 6, 2025, by repurposing $65,000 from the catch basin truck account for the repair of dump/sand plow number 45.
How did this end up as a warrant article?
It's a repurpose of capital funds.
I guess why wouldn't it have just stayed off of a repurpose of capital funds and just... So I asked I know what I'm trying to ask, I just don't know if I asked it right. Normally, something like this would come up as a transfer amongst us in our operating budget. But,
It's a repurpose of.
well, no, I understand, but I guess I'm looking at, okay, I think now I'm getting to my question. This seems more like an operational budget function. Why are we repurposing CIP funds? Why wouldn't we, sort of going back to the discussion we had in 21, I'm trying to use operating money for operating work and CIP funds for CIP investment. So normally, to clarify, anything over a one-time purchase, 25, 30. So let's make it simple. I would expect to authorize $65,000 not to do a repair, but to purchase a brand-new vehicle. I wouldn't expect it to be a repair. $65,000 is a lot of money to do a repair. So if we were going to make repairs like that, I would look at the value aligned with the, whatever we, you'd make some kind of an assessment and say, gee, this is a $750,000 vehicle, $65,000 makes sense to not repurposing CIP funds. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes. It's a good question. I have spoke to Joanna in depth about this. Our dump sand plow number 45 is integral to our snow operations, snow and ice operations. This is the best way to resolve the problems and get that vehicle fixed. We don't want to go purchase another vehicle. It's not worth it. We're not going to put in another $300,000 for a new vehicle, but we need to have this fixed. And as we move towards our winter season,
Right, which is, we're heading right into it.
which is why we did the repurpose.
Perfect. So what you're telling me is rather than putting another $300,000 or $400,000 truck onto the CIP budget, we're going to take some residual or some money that's available and fix it.
We are.
Thank you. That's great.
I have two questions. One's for Karen, which is, I do sort of agree with the point that we typically categorize vehicle repairs as operational expense. So is there any issue? Is it because town meeting votes on it, it doesn't matter? Or is there an issue with taking money that was in the CIP and allocating it to essentially what is typically an operational expense?
Actually, the way that it was tax levy money that was actually used for this, even though it was part of the CIP. So it isn't borrowing funds, it's actually tax levy. So I did look into that, but we want to just be transparent to make sure that we bring it to town meeting as a repurpose.
Yeah. To be clear, I have no objection to the idea of it. I just want to make sure we're not going to get
Right.
hit on an audit or have it.
No, there should not be any issues. I think if it was.
As long as town meeting approves it, it is what it is, and we're good.
I mean, if it was an actual borrowing, which is what I wanted to look
Yeah.
back, and I looked at it, then maybe that would have been an issue. But because it was actual tax levy, I feel comfortable that we're not going to run into any issues with that.
And then for Joanna, my follow-up question is, we just approved the catch basin expense. Did that come in under budget? What is,
So
what are we doing with that? How are we coming up with 65 grand from something that was just approved?
So the catch basin replacement, it was planned for in May. We had some turnover with our mechanics. Our mechanics are confident that the catch basin truck, if we invest additional funding, I believe he said about $10,000 to $20,000, it would be, sorry, it's going to last us much longer time, and it's a better truck, more to the effect of they built them better at that time than they are now.
What was the original CIP? Is 65,000 the total that we allocated?
No, it was a 4-year lease purchase or a 4-year payment plan for $65,000.
Is the $10,000 or $20,000 in repairs, is that already budgeted somewhere?
No, we're gonna have to wait so because we're gonna be able to use the catch basin truck for the rest of the year, and then we're hoping that we'll be able to wait for next town meeting to appropriate money, and we can move forward with our catch basin cleaning in late spring, early summer.
Is the plan to just remove that 4-year lease entirely from the CIP?
Yeah, so we're going to be meeting with town administration in the next few months to change that CIP line item.
Any other questions on Article 24?
Motion to recommend approval?
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 24. All in favor?
Right.
The next two are citizens petitions, although I asked the DPW director if she can stand by. I'm going to have a question when we get to 26, so just a moment. 25 is a petition to authorize establishment of a new private cemetery at 0 Cemetery Road under Mass General Law, Chapter 114, Section 34. Ms. Coyle, did you want to address, I think some of this had planning-related, it had health as well, okay. Can you just, I don't know if there's a financial impact to this one or not for the town, but just give us a brief.
Sure, thank you.
Article 25.
Thank you for the question. So this proposed cemetery is a citizen's petition. The cemetery is private, and the location of the proposed cemetery is on Cemetery Road. There are other cemeteries within the area, just to give you context, and this parcel of land was purchased with the intent of putting a cemetery there. It has gone through the various process for DCG, planning, conservation, ZBA, DPW, and the Board of Health had a public hearing about 2 weeks ago, and we had finished our process under the Mass General Law 114, Section 34. The Board of Health has to approve any proposed cemetery. As you may imagine, cemeteries don't come very often. So this is the first time that we've had the experience with our Board of Health to do this. So the public hearing was held, and the Board of Health did give their approval to move forward. So it did require Board of Health approval, but it is a citizen's petition because it does further need town meeting approval.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? I think on its,
Wouldn't we just defer to the petitioner for this?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Motion to defer to the petitioner.
Second.
there's a motion and a second to defer to the petitioner on Article 25. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 26, this one I believe has come up previously or was withdrawn, I think I forget what status, but it didn't go forward. But this is to vote to accept Whitman Bailey Drive as a public way and as a citizen's petition. I think you know where my question is going to lie with this one, but financial cost for the acceptance, and does that roadway meet current town standards?
So this has a little bit of a history. So during the design phase of Whitman Bailey Drive, based on my recollection, I believe that the subdivision came to planning board, and there were waivers that were asked for design standards, things that we weren't really willing to waive, or at least recommend waiving, such as pavement thickness or radii, curbing along the radii of the road, things that we would need to be spending money on fixing if, let's say, our plows damaged, the radii of the road. So I believe that the subdivision was approved, but then the developer came back and came forward with a private development. And at that time, it was agreed that since it was going to become private, that those design standards were sufficient because the town was not going to, we weren't going to be responsible for maintaining it. So that's how it was built. We weren't there for inspections because it was going to be a private development. And I believe those issues that we didn't want to compromise on, they were built with those, I wouldn't say substandard.
Different standards,
Right.
not town standards.
Less than town standards, yes.
Questions on this one? I guess I would ask if it were to be approved, this is the financial part, would the town be obligated to bring that roadway up to its current standards? Or in the future, as you said, that the less than ideal thicknesses, the road would deteriorate and a grader in the town would then have to be obligated to, would probably be investing in that roadway sooner than if it was done to the town standards for construction.
Correct.
Okay.
But we have an obligation to, you know, maintain all of our roads, so it would eventually or somehow spill into the pool of repairs and updates and, right, wouldn't it?
It's private.
As a private
No, but
roadway,
it says to make it a public way.
if it were to be
If it
accepted.
were, yeah.
Right.
So,
That's
cor-
what, that's what.
Well, I thought that's what we were discussing.
Yeah, yes, yeah, I think that's my point is that approval or our recommendations or even deferral, it will have a financial impact should this be accepted as a public way within the town. So,
But there's also benefits for it to being a public way too. It's a benefit to the people that live on the road, because then they get, you know, they pay taxes into the town, so they should receive some benefit back from the town. We can't take their tax dollars, keep it a private way, and let their road just deteriorate. They're getting nothing back for their tax dollars, if you think of it that way. Sorry, but I was a private way for 50 years with potholes all over the place, and it wasn't until we became a public way that my road got fixed. People used to ruin their cars coming down my road.
I think I appreciate your point that.
Yeah, that's
but
all I'm saying.
I had actually, my family had looked at when that was a proposed development, and the developer chose to go this direction and impacted their future, the future residents there. So there was almost a willful decision on that developer's part to go this direction. And I think they went that way because the town they weren't willing to invest the money in at the time to make it up to the standards and the radius. So that's sort of I knew a little bit of the history of that project in particular.
Sure. No, it's a double-edged sword, and I, go ahead.
My question is just, I don't think we got a yes or no on would we be responsible for bringing it up to town standards like immediately if it becomes a public way, or would it?
no, I wouldn't, so if it became a public way, I wouldn't look at repaving it or to bring it to town standards, you would have to reconstruct it. Right now, the road is not in bad condition. It's just going to deteriorate faster.
So my follow-up question is, when it does need to be reconstructed, unlike a road that's built to spec, where I'm assuming you can just strip pavement and repave, like, can you just give like a very brief, I'm an uneducated person in this particular field, kind of summary on like what kind of work would need to be done to bring it to town standards?
So there might be some changes in elevation, just because you're changing the elevation, or you would have to excavate to give that thickness. So it would be a total reconstruction. In some of our roads, if they're at that point, we do have to reconstruct it. So it wouldn't be much different than what we would do with a regular road. It would just be trying to, bring it up, or it would deteriorate faster. So it would have be on a more faster schedule.
You mentioned the plowing, the radius, one of your larger plows would not be able to plow that based on the radius, the current radii, is that my geometry was never that great. You would have to send a smaller plow in there to plow that?
So I'm not sure if we would have to send a smaller plow, but our current standards is that if you have a radius along the edge of a curve, so even when you're going into a roadway, we require granite curbing so that the plow can follow that solid structure versus the bituminous concrete, which is just going to get beat up, and we'll be back in the spring to fix it.
My only other question is, is the width of the road like standard for what we would have in town, or is there also a chance that we would end up having to do like a taking to widen roads, or like, I just have no idea, obviously, right? I haven't seen the plans, so I'm curious whether there's any additional implications as far as like work that will have to be done on behalf of the town in order to do the work that we then want to do later?
So, I'm not sure if the width is 24 feet, but we certainly have roads that are narrower than 24 feet existing. The taking is another matter, and I will defer to Dr. Menard for that, just because it's deeded over as one parcel. So how that becomes individual parcels with frontage, I'm not, that would be either for Dr. Menard or Town Council.
And to the chair, my point isn't that as soon as we became a public way, the next day we got our roads fixed, we went into queue. But at least, you know, if that hadn't happened to this day, you probably wouldn't be able to come down my street because of that. So I was just saying that if we're going to take tax dollars from people for owning land in our town, they should be able to benefit from some of the services for those tax dollars. That's really the only point why I said there's a benefit.
Yeah,
That's all.
And this project is, that development has only been there
We waited
20
quite a long time, yeah.
20 years, almost 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I want to say it was definitely before COVID, but I don't think it was much longer than that.
Any other questions on this one?
I would move that we not recommend approval of this Article 26.
Is there a motion to not recommend approval?
And you got a second, George?
Andrew's in a second. George is a second. So we have a motion and a second not to recommend approval on Article 26. Any other discussions? Okay, all in favor of that? Okay, thank you. Wraps up the, town meeting. Any, no items are tabled, any discussion or items to be for the next meeting that we want on the agenda before we adjourn?
I do have a few through the chair. At the next meeting, I'd like to discuss our meetings of the next coming fiscal year as a board. Just our schedule. Next thing I'd like to do, everybody probably knows, I don't know if everybody knows, but Auburn puts out an annual report. This is the one that's posted, so I'd just like to bring up something about the annual report, not necessarily 2024. And that's the second. The third thing I'd like to do is, I don't know if anyone's aware, at the selectmen's meeting the other night, they moved to work with dispatch. There's a current project going on in town, so I would like to ask through the board that we invite the police chief and the fire chief. I believe they're working together, if I could, through the town manager. Yep. So I'd like to invite them back relative to the dispatch project that they're working on. And I think I'll just leave it at that, those three for now.
Anything else anybody wants to put on the agenda for the next? I would want to ask of Danielle, could we start to get to our email group, could you send us the select board's agendas? Because I think there are times that there are things that are relevant that we should at least, if we can't attend, we watch, or we watch, you know, at a later date, you know, discussions that may, sometimes stuff comes before us and it's been discussed, you know, at length at the select board's meeting. It would help us to be a little more educated in some of our decisions. So
Sometimes we forget there's a meeting and then they trigger a financial related event and we miss it.
So even if we just got an email their agenda, that would be helpful, I think. Any idea when our next meeting would be scheduled?
I would say, town meeting.
I'd like to see if maybe we could have one before,
Okay.
Maybe even a week or two, whatever, before the town meeting.
Okay. Just let us know and we'll, and if not, we'll, those items that were, that we took no position on, didn't have dollar amounts, we could always address those before.
I have it on my calendar. What's the date of the town meeting?
28th.
October 28th. Yeah, it's a couple days. Are we coming in costume or? Oh, no, it's September 28th.
October.
That's what I said, October. That's why I meant, are we coming in costume? That's why
No meetings to approve. There's nothing else.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. We're adjourned.